Man, don't you just hate it when you get this bubbling on your paint here at the bottom of the wall underneath the window? Well, I got called over here by my friends to check this out, to find out where the leak is and what could have caused the moisture to come down the wall here, even though we don't really feel any here. So today we're going to show you how to root cause that and determine what's causing your paint to bubble on the wall. We're going to show you how to root cause it, and we're going to show you how to repair it, and it all starts right now. Hey everybody, Jeff here. Welcome back to the channel where we give you world-class advice on home renovations, kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, engineering disasters, tool reviews. And today we're doing an engineering disaster here. And so if you have not subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Make sure you click on that subscribe button down below right now while it's fresh on your mind. And then after you do that, click on that little gray bell icon next to it. That way you'll be alerted to every single video we upload, because you don't want to miss a single one of our videos like today's engineering disaster. So my friends had pointed out to me, see this bubbling right along here, along the bottom of the window here? There was a spot of it here, see this? And another spot over in the corner. And typically when we see failure modes like this, it means there's some moisture in there, like maybe a leak. And sometimes you could have a leak that dripped inside the wall from the window, and it's inside the wall. But the humidity eventually works its way to the front side, and you get soft drywall and everything. Now I don't feel any soft drywall here or anything, but what we have to do is cut a huge rectangular shape of drywall out from underneath the bottom of the window, and we have to examine inside the wall there on the cement block wall to see if was there any water that dripped down there. So what we had to do here along this wall here is we're cutting a huge rectangular piece out of the wall here beneath this window to find out was there any water intrusion inside the window. What happened was my friends here, the homeowners, a couple of years ago had a company come in and install these hurricane impact glass windows, and so they're suspecting there may be a leak around this window somewhere. And I've seen them before on many of my other projects. There's always a crack outside. If you go outside and look on your house and look on the stucco, if you see a little hairline crack, you may think that there's nothing to that, the teeny tiny hairline crack. But in a driving rain, that huge amount of water, it works its way into the crack, gets through the cement block and comes down behind the drywall and then lands in here. And it's very common for me to see it in a corner of a room, because the corners of a house is where there's likely to be cracks on the outside. So let's take this drywall out and see what we find. Okay, so here is the large rectangular piece of drywall opening here, where we removed the drywall to expose the window and the window frame here. So what we're looking at here is this is the top of the cement block wall. These globs of cement here are what they rest the windowsill on here. And as we look around here, we see nothing, like zero evidence of water anywhere, no previous trickles or stains of any type that would have indicated that there was ever any water in here, ever. This wood is perfectly dry. There would have been runs down it had there been any type of water at any time. The insulation here is perfectly dry. And so we don't see anything, at least up in this area. So normally you would have seen something, I would think, anywhere around here, right? Now water could have been 20 feet away and trickled diagonally down the wall as well. But for right now, we're just examining this area right here. Okay, and so a lot of the bubbling was occurring right down here on the paint. So we figured, well, there must be some kind of moisture here. So we cut this extra square out here, felt all the way down to the bottom. There's no moisture on the back of the drywall. No moisture at all on the wood plate on the bottom there, that bottom plate. Nothing, I mean, not on the wall, no stains, no nothing, no hint. There's never been any water in here as far as we could tell. And by the way, whenever you're cutting, large pieces of drywall out of your wall like that, I recommend that you use a utility knife or one of the little oscillators to cut it nice and smooth and straight like this. Not so much the little hand saws for drywall, they're too rough. Because what we're going to be doing is putting this piece right back in, since there's nothing wrong with it, right? We're going to put that exact same piece that puzzle piece that we just pulled out of the puzzle is going right back in there, and it will go in absolutely perfectly smooth, and it will perfectly match all the way around because we were careful with how we cut it all the way around, nice and straight edged. Now also notice how we were strategic in where we cut it, the drywall here, because we cut it so that it would be halfway across this wood furring strip here. Now this is somewhat unusual on this wall because usually they make the furring strips go vertical like studs. But in this case we used our magnet here to determine where the screw heads were and just marked them all, so we knew exactly where to make the cut so that when we put the piece back we can just screw it right into this wood here. And same with this piece here, except we have to get a little piece of wood to put behind over here and on the bottom and on the side here. Yeah, because once you cut and separate, remember this was once one whole piece of drywall, but now once you cut and separate it, you now need to put support back behind along where you cut if there's no stud behind it. So the window guys had come and they had added a lot more caulk here around the edges because the homeowner was concerned that maybe it was cracked. So they came and they added a lot more there, and so it's pretty well sealed up. There's no way any water would be getting in here. And we also didn't find any major points along the way here where there was cracks in the cement where any water could possibly get in. Okay, so here you can see we put the pieces back and they fit in just perfectly again. But I wanted to show you something that we discovered here while we were examining this, and we peeled away the bubble to see, you know, there's no stain. Look at that, there's nothing there. But here's what we did find here. It's very surprising to see just how easy this paint is peeling right off the wall like this. You see that? That should never happen. That's not from moisture, okay? What we see here, folks, is that, and I've seen this before many times, what you have here is the original builder when they built this house in 1981. They never put primer on the drywall when they painted, and this is just stupid. This is what happens down here in Florida, and people wonder why I always complain about the builders down here, because they're horrible, and even more horrible is they're uninformed, useless, they're subcontractors, because this is what they leave you with, okay? And everybody here knows that in the late 70s and early 80s, and probably still continues today, the builders down here in Florida, they just give you the lowest, cheapest crap of everything, including the paint. And they probably just sent their guys in and sprayed the whole drywall here with their cheap, chalky white paint, flat white paint. And so you can see how it just comes right off, it just peels right. You could probably, in very little time, peel off the whole wall here in very little time. So what we're going to do is probably score a line right there and peel it off to that line and then put some primer on there. All right, so this, you can see how clean the paint had just peeled right off of the drywall there. The drywall looks like it's brand new, like it was on day one when they first installed it. You know, it's hard to believe that this drywall here is you know, 40 years old. So this just shows us here that at the bottom, it wasn't that the paint was so much bubbling, it was just separating from the drywall. It was completely peeling off on its own. And this is happening probably all over the rooms here. Now I can tell you the owners painted these rooms here just a few weeks ago, painted everything here, and they even used a primer. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, if we use a primer, why didn't that help? Why does that not solve the problem for us? We used a primer. Well, the problem is you used a primer, but the builder originally did not use a primer on the drywall here. So because they didn't put a drywall primer on there, then anything else that you add, any other additional layers of paint that go on top, are not going to benefit by having the primer put on there, because it's not, the primer cannot soak through 3 previous layers of paint and get onto that drywall and stick and cling for you and give you a good surface to adhere to. Now the paint itself that they put on there, this kind of neutral tone bone colored paint that you see here, this paint did stick really good to the primer that they put down, but the problem is all the layers beneath it are not sticking to the wall. So you can tell a lot about the history of a house when you start peeling away the layers here. So if you look here at this wall here, you can see this is the paint that our friends put on a few weeks ago. This is the color that it was before that. It's green. And you can bet that before it was green, because green is basically one of those newer modern colors from the mid-2000s. So probably the original paint underneath this green is likely an ugly, plain old, flat, white paint that the builder put on there. And they usually put on the lowest quality, most useless paint you could ever get. It goes on really, really thin. And it's typically the same paint they use with the popcorn ceilings, which this place has here too. So they'll use that same paint and mix it in with their mixture for the popcorn ceilings and shoot that all over your ceiling. So then upon further examination, we found more examples of the bubbling, like right here, you can see it. Found it all around the bottom of the baseboards throughout the room here. And then in the foyer here, along the wall here, the bottom of the wall where it meets the baseboard, we're finding more and more of this bubbling here. And you know what? This was all just painted a few weeks ago. So why is this bubbling? Is there some huge amount of humidity in here? Is there a lot of leaks going on? You know, what is going on in here? So what you can do is just start scraping off the paint until you find a good stopping place here. But then if you notice, see, it's like three-dimensional right here. That's deep because you have several layers of paint over the years. So now what you have to do is get some drywall mud and you have to skim coat it till it's all the way across flat and everything, and sand it, and then you can paint it. But remember, you'll have to prime it after you do all of that. Anytime you're doing drywall mud, you always put primer on and then paint. So what are your options here for repairing something like paint? So if you can get it to scrape off clean like you see right here, you'll be starting from scratch, from brand new again with a clean canvas, okay? Okay, so there you can see we've cut a new piece of drywall there and we've inserted it into place. We cut an L-shaped piece so that you don't have to do multiple pieces there. Okay, so now we can see the first layer of mud has been put on there. We're just waiting for it to dry. So you can see I've taken the utility knife here and I've scored a line in the paint here without digging into the drywall. And then a vertical line here. And then we're going to come along the bottom and make sure we cut through the caulk. Okay. Because you don't want to peel off any of the paint from the baseboard. So once all this comes off nice and straight here, you can see we started to scrape further over like this with the paint. And you'll find areas where it won't separate anymore, and that's where I stop. I won't continue to go any further than an area where the paint looks like it's stuck on there pretty good. Because all we're going to do is come back later with more drywall mud here, and we're just going to skim this up here just to level it off. And then sand it, apply our primer, and paint. So what we're trying to do here in this spot is to just get rid of that bubble. So this is one little spot in here. Okay, so right there is where the bubble is, see that? So we've taken it right up to the score mark, and hopefully the score mark stays there. Yeah, good. And so you can see right there it's a little loose. We've taken that right up to the score mark. Alright, so as you can see here, we're just sort of finishing up the scraping, and you can see it's coming right along with the scored edges there. Now, I pretty much scraped up to where the paint stopped peeling back. So even though in some cases like here, it just peeled off in huge sheets that you can just quickly remove the entire area. Other areas here, it just stops, and so that's where I stop. I'm not going to, if it's not broken, I'm not going to try to fix it. So just leave everything to where it stops separating and you're done. And then what we'll do tomorrow is I will come back in here and put the second layer of drywall mud on here, and we'll skim over this area here so that the drywall layer here will be at the same level as the 3 or 4 layers of paint that have gathered up over the years there. And then we'll sand the whole thing down. We'll roll on some primer, and then we'll roll on some paint. But you can see how much of a mess this causes just from this small area. So you really need to decide whether or not you want to work just a small spot area like this, or if you want to try doing your whole wall. We did that one time in a bedroom that had this same issue at another person's house 2 years ago, and it took 2 of us 3 hours to scrape almost the entire wall, and even then you're left with a lot of this stuff, so most of it comes off and then you're left with this. So it is a pretty huge task if you decide to go ahead and get adventurous and try to peel it off of the entire wall, because you will find that not all of it comes off. It's time to put on the second layer of mud, and what I'm going to do here is just do a quick sanding over this entire area here to smooth everything down, get it on the same level, and then try to get a good wide swath all the way across here of new mud for the second layer. And I just wanted to point out to you, normally when you do this, you should be wearing a mask. You know, paper mask is okay. I actually forgot them. I had them ready there at home and I forgot to bring them, so I'm without them. But it's going to be very quick. It's just a small area, and I've got my shop vac connected up to my sander, so it's going to get virtually, you know, probably almost 100% of the dust anyways. Okay, this is a little bit on the soupy side. I think we're going to add just a little more to it. Okay, so we're just going to start by applying it to the wall down here, and just go upward with it till it meets the rest of the paint. You just want to make sure that everything's filled into the same level there, and we'll come by and we'll flatten it down in a second with our bigger knife. I just want to get the material onto the wall. Okay, so when the drywall installer came yesterday, you remember he left us a swath right here where he taped. So now we've put the second layer on and we feathered it out further, and we're just going to trowel it all off now. We'll start right here by the outlet and just go feather it all the way out. Well, here we are the next day, and everything's nice and dried and it's all white here. And I'm just going to go around and hit some of the high spots here with my scraper here. And then I'm going to switch over to the 220 grit sandpaper here. So each layer that you go, you add up, you make it a smaller grit. Because by the time you're on the second layer here, you should be mostly flat without any huge amounts of bumping out or anything. So it's just a matter of a formality here of just going over it and giving it a quick buff all the way across here and making sure everything's at the same level. And then we'll put the third and final coat on, and that will be the skim coat. So this skim coat is what ties them all together. Everything here will be all one, as one homogeneous family here. And after that, we'll be able to prime and paint once that layer dries. Well, as you can see here, we've got it all sanded down now after the third layer, and we've already painted on our first layer of coating here, which is the primer. Okay, now right along the bottom here at the baseboard, I just ran a quick piece of tape just to block, so in case we get any paint that runs down the wall, it won't land on our baseboard. Well, we can see the paint came out really nice here too. So now we're just going to peel the tape off, because you don't want to leave the tape on. Whenever you tape up like this while you're painting, you always want to remove the tape, usually pretty quickly. You don't want to let it dry, especially overnight, because it can peel the paint right off the wall once you rip the tape off. So you want to do it while the paint is still drying. But you can see here how the paint went on really easily because we put that layer of primer on there. We rolled on that layer of primer first, so that allowed the paint to go on the wall here very easily, okay? And it just covered very evenly too. So we have a beautifully repaired wall now. We have removed all of the bubbling in the paint that was occurring down here. And I know this probably turned out to be more involved than you thought, but remember we were looking at two possible scenarios here. So the scenario we showed you here today was the one when you suspect a leak or water damage, and it turned out there wasn't any. And so this repair could have been as simple as in the beginning, just scraping off where the bubbling is and seeing how the drywall looked there and if there was any water intrusion. But in this particular case, the homeowner who had these impact glass hurricane windows installed a couple of years ago had called the manufacturer, and they sent somebody over, and that's when we cut open this wall to see. So anyway, we hope you enjoyed this video so far, and if you found this video useful, hey, go ahead and smash that like button down below. Give us a thumbs up.